Kilted
Tilted
balls.
balls.
Oh, you were
Woo!
almost with me there. You were almost there.
Almost.
I got on I came home and the girls were watching a movie and it had an 80s song at the end and I'm like, I feel like I missed some of that song. So I like turned on YouTube and like played it. And then
Mhm.
another 80s song came on and then another 80s and then
That
another
is
80s.
awesome.
So now I've got like all these 80s songs in my head and not like the 80s like glam rock 80s, like the pop 80s.
Okay.
Like Peter
Nice.
Townsend was the first one. Things from like Guardians of the Galaxy, Genesis came on.
There you
And
go.
then that Dance with Me, that Shut Up and Dance with Me. I'm like, wait, you're not 80s.
That's hilarious.
They're like, well,
Well,
it
we
sounds like 80s. I'm like,
we
it's
heard we heard Baby Got Back on the way home today. So that's actually what I was singing, listeners, if that ever comes up on a
nice.
quiz or anything.
Nice. I like it. Baby Got Back. That's always a favorite. I was singing it at practice the other day. So,
Hmm.
hey, people, welcome to the Kilted Balls podcast.
Yes.
We're back again, still kicking, still rocking and rolling. We have started doing Twitter spaces before our episode. So we did a test run last week. It seemed to run good. We did it again today. So if you want to hear us kind of prep for the episode or just kind of jibber jabber at each other as we're getting prepped, um, we tend to record around Tuesdays, all the time around this time.
Yeah.
And so our spaces will there. So follow us on Twitter, um, Kilted Balls, right? Balls with a Z,
Yep.
and you'll get notifications that we're in a space and you can like ask us questions or things
Hmm.
that you want us to hit on the show. Our show today is pretty packed. We got lots to talk about. This may get broken up into two shows because there was a
Yeah.
lot. First, we want to talk a little bit about our strategies. So if you've been listening, we have two or three different strategies we are working with right now. So we have our future bot strategies that we're not going to go into a ton of details on it,
Hmm.
but if you've been listening, we have our bot strategy. And then we have our threes strategy, which deals with like 3L and 3S tokens.
I already threw that away from mine.
Nice, nice. And yeah, that one I thought had the most potential, but has been probably the most disappointing. And we'll talk about that a little bit because I think once we kind of throw something out, it's
Hmm.
probably a good time to talk about. And then we have a tricky strategy which requires us to use multiple accounts or multiple trading platforms in order to operate. And so
Yes.
we'll talk about the strategies. Um, we were talking with listener Jason today, who we've interviewed before, and he was talking about like different things that he was confused about with these. And so for part of this episode, I think we'll talk about those and talk about a little bit about the strategies, but mainly how the different strategies, not the strategies work, but the technique, the
Hmm.
tool we're using with our strategies, and what we think about those. Now, the interesting part for us, and I'm not sure where you're at, so I'm going to speak to where I'm at, and you can kind of
Okay.
go with this. Um, when all of the FTX kind of stuff came out, it wasn't that I was worried necessarily because our strategy doesn't deal with worries or hopes. It's like that kind of strategy.
Yes.
But one of the things that I've always been leery about with our strategies is I don't like big days with my strategies. I don't like big
Hmm.
days, right? Big up,
Yes.
big downs, it doesn't matter. Like that's good for some people. For the strategy, it's not really the thing. And so when all that stuff came out with FTX and things started to jump, I was like, I'm gonna just sit back for a while and not mess with anything until I'm feeling more comfortable. Which led me to make some other choices, which now I should be back into the game and I'm not, right?
Okay.
But I definitely backed away because I'm like, okay, I'm gonna pause the strategy because shit be crazy, right?
Hmm.
And if you are in the crypto market, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Things have been kind of wacky for what, the last week, right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I've just kind of stepped away and said, we're going to let the dust settle and then I'll play again. Right. So um, I have been gambling a little bit, which is what I call my futures gambling. So I still
Mm-hmm.
do some of that. Took a big, well, not a big L today. Other people took really big L's. Mine was like
Yeah.
$30. But I took an L today on my gambling, which I mean it's gambling. So if I lose
Yeah.
$30 gambling sometimes, I'll tell you what, I've lost a hell of a lot more than that gambling on the lotto this month. So
Yeah. Yeah, I took a small L when all the news was coming out about Crow, and it had crypto.com, so with their coin, and it had already gone down a lot, and I was like, oh, it's gonna go down more, blah blah blah. And yeah, I think we've talked about there's a couple rules. I don't remember our rules for leverage, but
we need to make better rules, and we need to
my
follow them.
it was up a little bit, and I was gonna take it, but it wasn't quite, the 10% I was shooting for, which with the 20x 10, I don't think 10 is out of the question. But anyways, it was like 8 or something, and I didn't do it. And then I got busy and got stopped out. So
Well, and it's interesting because that's the same L I took today was not
mhm.
Crow, but it was, I don't even remember what it was. Okay. So we do a lot of future stuff. So it's easy to forget. If you're like, how do you forget something like that? We do a lot, right?
Mhm.
But the one I got today was up a lot. And I looked at it and I'm like, oh, that's crazy up. I'm going to take a short on it. I'm going to roll the dice. And I put in for a short and boom, it was like I got 8% right away. And I was like, oh, like maybe I should chase this, maybe I shouldn't. And I'm like, I'm kind of busy. So I'm like, before I forget, I'm going to hit my take profit at 25% because
Mhm.
on KuCoin, which is our service of choice right now, there's like a button for 25, 50, 75, and 100. And so I just said take profit at 25% because it's like automatic. And I didn't have to
Mhm.
think. And I was like, all right, that's fine. And then I was like, ooh, maybe I should set my stop so I don't lose any money. And I was like, no, because I really want it to play and go up high. And so
Mhm.
I shut it off, walked away, and my phone like vibrates and I look at it, it says you're about to get liquidated. And I'm like, what? Like I'm gonna get liquidated? What are you talking about? And I open it up and it's like, yeah, you've been liquidated. And I'm like, seriously? Like I walked away.
What was your X?
It was like 20, I think.
That's what I did today. I snagged 2 Bitcoin 20 shorts.
But I could have, like, if I had just taken the 8%, like I could have just been like,
Yeah.
sweet, 8% done and walked away.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, well, I just opened it. Like I just opened it. And here's the thing that bothers me in general about my personality. I opened a bot. Within seconds, I was up 8% and I didn't hit close. Like if you can make
Ah.
8% in 20 seconds, you should just take the 8% and be like, yay.
Yeah.
So yeah, we took some L's today being dumb. But yeah. So our strategy, let's talk about bots first.
Okay.
Um, So the question today was Jason we were talking about bots. He's like, I don't really understand how they work or how it goes. And we've been playing with them now for 5 months.
Yeah, I know we were playing with
Yeah.
them when I was in Texas, for
Well, and I
sure.
started going into traveling because I was afraid I
Oh
wouldn't be
yeah.
able to trade.
Mm-hmm.
So I started bots to see. So here is how a bot works. And if you're on something like KuCoin, and I think other services have bots, um, there's a few different ways, few different options, right? Depending on what you're doing. We've only played with two. There's four options. The two we've been playing with, the
Mm-hmm.
first one is what we did in July, and it's called a spot bot. So it's like doing spot trading. It's like your normal everyday trading. What the
Yes.
bot does is you set up the bot. You don't have to. You can just do everything to default. So the program will do everything for you. But basically, you pick a price range for whatever token you're trading, and you tell the bot to do like 100 orders, 50 buys and 50 sells in that price range. And
Mhm.
so what the bot will do is it will automatically put in buy orders for 50 buys at your entry price. Like it'll automatically do it and it'll buy basically, if you want to think about it as shares, like 50 shares of that thing. So they're not actual shares. It divides your price range and it buys them, but it buys them
Mhm.
all at that entry. And then it sets 50 sell orders all for whatever you split it. So let's say you had your price range was $1,000. It would set buy orders and sell orders for every $10.
Yes.
So every $10, it'll set a buy and sell order. And then what happens is when it hits that price point, it'll automatically sell. And then it'll put in a corresponding buy order, $10 less. And so when it hits $10 less, it'll buy again and it'll set a sell order for $10 more. So if you told it to do 100 orders, you would always have 100 orders.
Mhm.
Theoretically, they would be 50-50. That's never how it works, right? So if I
Yeah.
did 100 orders, like I might have 30 buy orders depending on price action and 70 sell orders, right? Or I might sell a whole bunch because the price jumps up and I might have 30 sell orders and like, 70 buy orders. The
Mhm.
point is it's buying and selling in really small increments.
Mhm.
Really small increments. And you're like, well, how much money do you get for something like that? Well, depending on what you set your range for, when it does that buying and selling on little increments, you're going to make a penny,
Mhm.
maybe 2 pennies. I don't know, right? Everybody's different. I had
Yeah.
one bot once that made me point 0.5 of a penny, right? And you're like,
Like
wait,
shit.
then why would you do that? Well, I'm not. The bot's doing it. And the bot's doing that as fast as it can do it. So as fast as the price fluctuates, it will buy and sell that way. And so, yeah, it's only a penny, but if it does that 100 times in an hour or in 2 hours or 3 hours, I made $1, right? And you're like, well, it's only a
Mhm.
dollar. Well, yeah, but that's because I only put in $100.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Get that
I made
1%.
1%. I made 1% in that hour or that day. And 1% every day is pretty good.
Mhm.
That's pretty good, right? And so that's how the bot works. It just buys and sells for you in really small increments, not trying to make you a lot of money,
Mhm.
just trying to make you a little bit of money a lot of times. And so it's just always doing that. So you don't have to look at it. It's just always running in the background, buying and selling, right?
Yep. And the default is any profits will go back in.
Yes.
But you set one up today where the profits weren't going back in.
Yeah.
Have you gathered any information from that?
Okay, so I haven't looked at all. So yeah, that's a great point. Your bot normally, as it's buying and selling, will just keep adding that money. So if I start with $100 and it makes me $5 in a couple days, then it's going to be trading $105 worth, and then 110, and it will compound on its own. So you can see some pretty big gains if you leave it in there, if it's always going up and down, right? The big thing is you don't have to worry about it, but
Yeah.
it will do it. Now, you also have the option where you can say, don't reinvest that money the whole time. And to test it for our listeners and for myself, I opened a bot that would do that. So that bot's been open about 12 hours. It was only $200. So I only threw in $200 so I could play with it so we could all learn a lesson. And it's made me 16 cents in that 12 hours, right?
Okay.
It's done 8 buy sells for me.
Okay.
So basically it's done 8 cells, 16 cents. So it's not doing bad.
Hmm.
Um, my break even hasn't really changed at all, which it shouldn't.
Okay.
and I'm assuming that my position is being added to. So 16 cents, it's a little hard to see yet,
Yeah, that's true.
but we're going to take a look at this and we're going to see if over the days, if this is going to be like giving me money back.
Yeah, because that's what we were kind of wondering. Like all my grid profits are super high. I have 4 bots open right now,
Okay.
but my total profits are right around even.
Yeah, both of
So,
mine are. I have 3 bots open and my 2 that have been running for a week. So,
mhm,
right, it's been a week since that whole FTX thing blew up, and I
yeah,
took my money out of my normal things and I put them in these bots so they could just be earning me money. And so far, one of them is up 2%. Like, just it's made me 2%. So
yes,
I want listeners to understand, it's not up 2%. It's made me 2% of my money, and I've reinvested that 2% automatically. So I've
yep,
told it to do that. The other one is up 4%, and same thing. It's just been reinvesting that money for me the whole time. So my actual money invested is actually going up the whole time.
oh, nice,
It's like a CD for our
mm-hmm,
listeners. The CD every year pays you interest and it just rolls that interest in. It just keeps rolling in for as long as you have the CD open.
yep,
That's it. Now, your prices go up and down. So, like my ADA is at 0% total profits right now. So, my position is bigger. I own more ADA theoretically, but ADA's dropped in price since I bought it.
yeah,
So, but I'm still even, which is kind of important to know that ADA is probably down 2% since I bought, but I've made 2% of profits,
mm-hmm,
if that makes sense to the listeners. So that's what a spot bot is. It just does a
yep,
normal trade and it's just that normal action and
yep,
it's convenient because it's always buying and selling and it's giving you that grid. They like to compare it to like APR, like the CD. So like my grid APR right now on ADA is 96%. My grid on XRP is 162%
mm-hmm,
APR. So, and those will go up as it continues compounds. But that's kind of the deal. These are long-term holds. And for me, it wasn't necessarily long term. I just wanted my money doing something while I wasn't trading. And I
yeah,
wanted it in a spot where I wouldn't have to worry or mess around. Now, here's the negative. All my money right now is in those because I took it out of my strategies, which means I'm not going to do my strategy right now until I pull my money out of those. I'm not going to pull my money out of those while they're in the red or even,
yeah,
right? Like
yeah,
if they hit 5 or 10%, I'll pull them out.
yep. I'm keeping mine till the beginning of the month because I hit my goal for this month, and which I did the last 2 months as well. I hit my trading goal. And then by the end of the month, I ended up being negative total in my trading goal. So this month, I took everything out and I put mine into bots, like you said, because it's more safe. And if I made, I mean, what I already made 8% on one of them, so 8% of 25% because I split it into 4 bots.
Oh,
But
right.
still, it was an extra. It was an extra $60, and I actually just because it was the XRP one, so I just bought the XRP and I threw it on my ledger. So
Nice.
I'm just keeping net profits and I have my amount that I'll start next month with.
Bless you.
For thank you. For and I have that amount that I'll start my next month with, and I'll close my bots and go from there.
Do you think that should be one of our rules for our strategy that when you hit your goal for a month, stop? And here's why I ask. I don't know about you, but every time my strategy has had a bad month, it's my fault. It's not the strategy's fault. So far, listeners, the strategies have been working really, really well, doing what they're supposed to. Total user error has cost me multiple times.
Me as
So
well.
they're not super high like they should be. And so basically, one of our issues with our strategies is we can't be involved in the strategies. You just have to follow the rules of the strategy and take you
Mm-hmm.
out of it. And so what Kilted is doing here is doing that to the extreme. He's like, I made my goal. Not only am I going to take myself out of it, I'm going to make sure there's no way I can screw it up. Kind of like when people freeze their credit cards, right? You
Mm-hmm.
throw your credit card in a block of ice because you're like, I can't trust myself. I need to have a delay where I can't get my credit card out of the ice,
That's
right?
hilarious.
I wonder if that still works for people because all my credit cards are on Google Wallets, right? So,
Oh yeah, that might not work as well.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, I can't do it, and I pay anyway.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm taking myself out of it. It's and I you never know. My bots might be down in the 20 odd days or the high teens, whatever it was when I
Sure,
started them. But it's not going to be down over 20% because my goal is 10. I was at 20% for the month because of the crazy day. I had two
right,
big wins and and yeah, so I might be down. And actually, right now, just from actually, I split it into four bots, and then I did have one. I just put it. Actually, it's just a couple $100 into the short Bitcoin short because I don't think we're at bottom yet. That's for me and from the people that I listen to, and enough people say we're not at bottom yet. I was willing to risk a couple $100, and even that's up. I'm pulling, just adding to that. I'm at like 24 point something percent right now for the
right.
month.
Well,
So,
and that brings up the next thing. One of our strategies uses the three tokens, the three S's and three L
mm-hmm,
tokens. There's lots of those out there on KuCoin. Crypto Lifer is a huge proponent of the threes. He talks
mm-hmm,
about the threes a lot. He likes them. They're basically leverage without the normal leverage risk. So you don't get liquidated per se with these. But what you and I have noticed is it started when Bitcoin took a little dump, not with this round, but the dump before.
mm-hmm,
I had a 3S token, and when it dumped, the 3S token dumped way more than it should have dumped. Like
mm-hmm,
so it like Bitcoin lost, I don't know, 10%, but
mm-hmm.
the 3S token lost 50%. And it was
Yeah.
like, "What?" Like that doesn't like it's they're supposed to be locked together and they weren't.
Mm-hmm,
And then when we had all of the crazy days and Kilted was getting updates of this, I was sending him screenshots and I was doing like
mm-hmm.
tons of research on it. They weren't tracking. The longs weren't
No.
tracking, the 3Ls, the 3S's weren't tracking. None of them were staying where they were supposed to be. Um and that screws up the whole process, right?
Yes.
Because everything's based in the strategy on the fact that the three will be tied to the one, like
Mm-hmm.
a future will. And so it
Yes.
didn't work, which means okay, so that we just lost faith in those tokens, and so we've been slowly pulling all of our money out of those tokens. Now I have a lot
Mm-hmm.
tied up in those tokens, and so I can't pull them out right now, but I am eagerly awaiting the day to pull those out. Which brings us back to futures and putting them into futures. Now, my futures, again, when everything went crazy, I pulled my futures out. I still have one tied
Mm-hmm.
up. So I have two different exchanges I'm working with to do the strategy. And in one of the exchanges, my money's still tied up. The joke that we've been laughing at me for is I set my sell order and it missed it by 5 cents. So
Yeah.
by a
That's
nickel,
tough.
I missed it. And now I'm in the red and having to wait till it comes back before that strategy will go. And I'm okay with waiting because again, it's an S, it's a
Mm-hmm.
short, and like you, I don't feel we're at the bottom yet. I thought
Yeah.
going into the election would be kind of our high, and then I thought we are going to be um kind of in the bottom,
Mm-hmm.
like it's going to drop. So I'm not like worried about that. I'm like, well, I'll just wait it out. It'll go eventually.
Yeah.
Um, so that's the one kind of bot, and that kind of is our talk on the threes. The other kind of bot we have is a future bot. So
Mm-hmm.
if you've been following us, we do a lot of future trading. Again, some people don't like futures trading at all. There's a lot of risk when you're doing futures. So you've heard us cry about getting liquidated. That's the big risk. The
Yeah.
motion, if you think of crypto as volatile, futures are like that on steroids, right?
Hmm.
So we are multiplying the volatility. That adds risk. So it's scary and it's super exciting. That's why we like it. Um,
Yes.
the other thing that is really nice about futures, and even the three tokens to an extent, is you can win in a bear market. So when everything's crashing right now, we were taking L's. Or not L's. We
Yep.
were taking W's. We were getting win after win after win because we can play that by taking shorts. We can say this is going to go down, we're going to do that, and we're going to ride it down. And so you make money in the bears. Whereas a lot of people don't do futures, they don't understand futures, they don't like the risk, so they just do
Hmm.
spot trading. And the
Yeah.
problem with spot trading, unless I don't understand it, is you don't really make money on the bear.
Yeah.
That's where you buy everything and then you make your money in the bull.
Hmm.
And what we're doing is we're making money in the bear and we're going to make money in the bull because
Hmm.
during the bear market you short it all and during the bull market you long it all. And so you're winning both ways is kind of the idea. But it's riskier. It's way
Hmm.
way riskier. So it's not something you dabble in without really getting a feel for the market, a feel for the news, a feel for the TA,
Yeah.
and just overall good knowledge about what the hell you're doing. Or you have no knowledge and you're playing it like you play the lotto in a scratch off ticket, which is what I was doing today when I took my L, right? I was like,
You think?
no
I
knowledge,
guess so.
I'm just
Yeah, because you just saw
rolling the dice.
something. I was gonna say when it's sideways, I think over the next year we're gonna see when it's sideways, the bots are gonna be beneficial.
Yes.
We're still gonna be able to do what we've been doing, but I think the bots are gonna help as well because it's not exactly sideways. Stuff is still going up and down. And if you're going up and down enough to hit those numbers for your bots to be making those exchanges,
Yes.
like you said, if it's 1% a day, that's amazing. If it's 1% a week, okay, cool.
Well,
1% a
and
week.
let's talk about that. So the other kind of bot that's out there is called a future bot.
Yes.
And basically, it does a similar thing where you can short it or long it. So you can make a bot that likes it when it drops in price, or you can make a bot that likes it when it goes up in price. So you get to play that market. And then the basics of what the bot does and of what leverage does is if I put $100 in and I do a 10x bot, the bot treats it like I put $1,000 in.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you leverage. So if I'm saying I'm doing a 10x spot, that 10x spot is pretending that I put in $1,000. And you can say, well, why would it do that? Well, because unlike a normal thing, right? If I buy $1,000 worth of Ethereum, right, which would be almost an Ethereum right now,
Mm-hmm.
no matter what Ethereum does compared to the dollar, at the end of the day, I'm still going to have almost an Ethereum.
1258.
1258. So let's say I put 1258 in. I own one Ethereum. If the price drops to 700, I still own one Ethereum. If the price jumps to 10,000, I still own one Ethereum. If it drops to a nickel, I still own one Ethereum. When I'm doing a 10x, I never own Ethereum.
Mm-hmm.
I never own it. And the risk is if that Ethereum drops 10%, the bank keeps my money. So that's what
Mm-hmm.
being liquidated is. It just takes it. That's the risk. If it drops more than what my leverage is, my money just disappears and I have nothing. Whereas if I had just bought the Ethereum, I
You
would
still
still
have it.
have it no matter what the price does. Now, the other part of that is if the price went up 10%, my money would go from $100 to 100%, right? I would
Mm-hmm.
double my money. So that is the good and the bad with that. And I can do that shorting. So I could do a 10x short. And if the price goes up 10%, I'm screwed. My money's gone. And if it goes down, you might say, why would you ever take that risk? That's why one of the rules is to set a stop loss, right? You set a stop loss so it never gets liquidated, but you'll stop out. You'll lose 20% of your money, but you'll still have money to play. But that's the deal with the futures bots. It's treating it like you put $1,000 in. Why do I say that? Well, because it doesn't work like a future. In a future, if you do a 10x and it goes up 10%, you made 100%. Because the bot is always buying and selling, if it goes up 10%, your bot may only go up 5% because it's doing all these little micro transactions instead.
Yeah, if it's a huge candle, you're missing that for sure.
You're going to miss those candles. But that also means you mitigate your risk, because when it drops 10%, yours isn't going to drop 10%. So you can be in it longer with a future bot. Now, we have made a tremendous amount of money in future bots. We have lost a tremendous amount of money in future bots.
Yes.
So that's the risk that you take. But you can set those future bots anywhere from like 2 to 10. So, it doesn't have to be risky, and you can do shorts from 2 to 10. So again, it doesn't have to be risky. So like right now, if you were like, yeah, I think I'm in a bear, you could start a bot, a future bot, and set it for 2S. And every time it dropped down, you would make money off of that, right? So that's kind of the deal with bots and how they work for us and how we use them. Right now in our strategy, we use long and short bots. And for keeping our money safe, we buy spot bots. And again, why would we do a spot bot? Like, we don't actually own that money, or we own those shares. The other thing that's nice about a spot bot is I can just stop the bot and take my shares. So like if I wanted to keep my XRP and put it on my ledger, I could say bot stop, and it'll say, do you want to keep this as XRP or do you want to change it to dollars? And I can tell it to do what I want it to do, right? And put it in my ledger, or I can say, nope, just turn it all to dollars. I'm going to go buy a lawnmower. I don't know. Right? So that's the stuff with bots. If you have other questions, drop us a comment, reach out to us on Twitter. We'll try to hit them in our next episode. But that's kind of the gist. Another strategy that's unique to crypto that I'm really thinking hard about using, I'm just scared, right? Jason has done this multiple times. I don't know if you've done it, but I'm just scared. And that is selling and buying right away when the market is down. So here's the reason why. Last year, I forget what it was, but I bought like 3 or 5 Ethereum last year when it was about $3,000 on Ethereum, right? So the market was good. We had an episode almost a year ago, and we said by the end of the year, it's going to hit 10,000. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go buy a whole bunch because I'm going to double my money. And I remember, right? It was like October, right? Like I made a deal and said, by November, I'm doubling my money. And it didn't. Right? So Ethereum tanked, as we all know. And so I've got that Ethereum sitting there, and it's lost half of its value. And so the strategy is, and you can't do this with stocks because there's a cool down period with stocks. But with crypto, there's no cooldown. So I could go onto my exchange tomorrow, sell my 3 or 5 Ethereum that I own at $1,200. And on the books, I would show an $1,800 loss per Ethereum. And that would be a loss on my income. So right away, I would show a loss on my income of, well, if it was 5 of them, it'd be 5 times 18 or $9,000 loss. So, my income would drop by $9,000 when I'm filing my taxes for Uncle Sam. But what I do is I sell all of them, and then I turn around and buy them all right back. So I don't actually lose my Ethereum. So I sell them all, buy them all. The sell goes into showing that I had a loss for the year, but I still own all that Ethereum. And that's why you would do it, because you would get that loss. Now, am I going to have way bigger gains? Yes. Now, when I sell them later on, I'm going to have way, way, way bigger gains, and I'm going to have to pay taxes at a way higher rate. So I'm just changing where I'm going to get my tax liability. So if I know I'm going to have a big tax bill this year,
Mm-hmm.
sell buy, and then I can write off $9,000 and lower my tax liability, and I'm sending it down the road until
Well, no, I mean,
later on.
if you wait at least a year, then it's going to be long term, so you don't know what tax bracket that's going to be.
Right.
But also, I did just hear on Proof they were doing an interview with a guy. He's doing some tax stuff, like a tax program,
Yeah.
and he was saying that even though there's no rules set in place for exactly what you talked about,
Hmm.
like they may come out and say, "Oh, you really can't do this," and I guess if you're audited, they would say, "Shame on you. You did that to harvest taxes," which is you're not allowed to do. Which is why there's the cool down period for the stocks. But at the same time, there's not much clarity out there right now.
There's no
So
clarity. And normally, when they do a tax change like that, they do it like, hey, next year,
mm-hmm.
we're going to do this because they've got to give all the politicians a year to take advantage of it before they get rid of it. Right.
Yeah.
So they're not going to just say, oh, here it is. They'll be like, in a year, we're going to do this. Take
Mm-hmm.
advantage now. Do your tax harvesting if you've got to do it. Um, Speaking of averaging and all of that, the funniest thing today, and I think this is how you tell we are degens.
Mm-hmm.
We have a buddy, Jason, who is not just dollar cost averaging super Yetis, which is hilarious overall because they're super Yetis, right? Which is always the NFT joke for people who are OGs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they all know the super Yeti, and he is dollar cost averaging super Yetis, which is super funny,
Awesome.
but is dollar cost averaging laser eyed super Yetis. So not just any super Yetis, laser eyed super Yetis. And while this is funny, there is a guy I saw on Twitter today, and I don't know how I stumbled across. He was talking about people getting pissed. So the Bored Ape floor has been dropping.
Mm-hmm. I think I saw
There's a
that somewhere.
guy out there, and I don't know if you saw this. One of his income strategies is he buys up Bored Apes. He leveraged his Bored Ape for a loan, buys Bored Apes, and then sells Bored Apes. He's basically doing stock market trading or crypto trading with Bored Apes. And there's people who are pissed at him because, they're like, diamond hand, hold, don't go to the floor. And they're like, stop doing that. You're lowering the floor. You're lowering the floor. He's like, I'm making money. Like,
Yeah,
sorry. Like
that's
this is my
hilarious.
business. This is how I make money. So I buy
That's
them from you guys
hilarious.
and then I sell them at the floor to make money. So
Uh-huh.
I'm like, you
Yeah,
can't be sad about that.
because if you're buying them over the counter or something like that, working out deals with people, or if there's traits where someone just wants to get rid of it and you have a great trait, you're not even have to put it at the floor.
Right.
You're
Right.
buying a
Yes.
floor and selling it mid range.
I'm like, that's just normal, smart stuff. And
Mhm.
you know what? He's taking a risk. Yetis could go to zero, just like Solana could go to zero, right? Like you don't know. It could go there, right?
Mhm.
Um, we've got less than a minute
We're
here.
getting cut for sure.
We're gonna get cut. So sorry for all the technical stuff today. Hopefully that didn't bore you guys. Hopefully it made it sound good. We'll do another episode. We still had like 5 things we wanted to talk about. So hopefully we will hit those in our next episode.